Did you know that something could be genetic without it being inherited? That means that you could have a genetic condition that you didn't get from your mom or dad, or you could have a child with a genetic condition that they didn't get from you. Today I'll be going over germline and somatic genetic changes, as well as a few other important terms. We often use the term "it's genetic" to mean it runs in my family, but that's not technically correct. Anything that's an inherited genetic disease is genetic, but not all genetic diseases are inherited. Genetic disease means a condition caused by a change in the makeup or function of a gene. You can look back at this video to review. In order to understand this, you must understand how a human develops. But remembering mitosis and meiosis is a lot to ask, so I'm going to simplify this by breaking up cells into two categories: germline and somatic. Germline cells are the reproductive cells, the ovum or egg, and sperm, as well as the germ cells that create them. We call the egg and sperm gametes. Somatic cells are basically all of the other cells. The egg and sperm have one copy of every gene, while the somatic cells have two copies, one from each parent. The egg and sperm each carry half of the genetic material needed to create a human. When the sperm fertilizes the egg, their genetic material combines and the first cell is created. This genetic code is the genetic code that will be copied and passed down to every cell that makes up this new life. The genetic code is then copied and the cell splits into 2, and then 4, and then 8, and so on. These cells all carry copies of the original germline genetic code, since they all came from the original germ cells and gametes. Eventually, the cells start getting job assignments and turning into different parts of the human body until a baby is formed. But the genetic code remains the same in every single cell. When someone inherits a genetic condition or trait, it means that the genetic change associated was in the egg or sperm from a mother or father. We call these germline variants. Because all cells in a person's body come from those original germline cells, they all will have the same genetic code and therefore the same trait or condition. However, sometimes genetic changes happen randomly when a cell is copying its own genetic code. These are called de novo, meaning new. If a de novo change happens in a somatic cell, a non-reproductive cell, it is called a somatic variant, and only cells that come from that cell will have that change. Depending on when the mistake happens, the results are different. If a new change occurs early, before the fetus is fully developed, the change will be present in certain tissues and organs, but not in others. This is called mosaicism. We may not be able to detect a variant in saliva or blood cells from a person who's mosaic for a variant. There are certain conditions that are often mosaic. If we think someone is mosaic for a condition, we may ask for a different sample to see if there's a change present there that wasn't found in the blood or saliva sample. This is very difficult because we can't test every tissue in the body to see what's affected. Mosaicism is just another reason to work with a genetic counselor or medical geneticist who will use more than just a genetic test to give a diagnosis. If a genetic change happens later in life, once a person is fully developed, it will only affect a small group of local cells in that part of the body. This may not mean anything unless the new change alters a gene that regulates something like cell growth or death, which is how cancer and tumors start. A somatic change almost never affects a person's sperm or egg genetic material, so they will still pass on their original and unchanged germline genetic code to their children, and not the somatic change. If the change was in their original genetic code or germline, it can be passed on to children. Okay, I know that was a lot of information, so here's a quick summary. Not all genetic diseases are inherited. Germline or hereditary is when a genetic change or variant is found in the egg or sperm. When a variant is germline, then every cell in the person's body will have that change, and it can be passed on to children. Testing for germline changes is typically done with saliva or blood. Somatic variants are changes that happen later in development. The earlier the change, the more cells are affected. So I have to admit, this week's topic is pretty complicated, but I hope you can use this chart to refer back to really understand these concepts. Congratulations! Now you understand the difference between germline and somatic, De Novo, Mosaicism, and more. If you find these interesting, make sure to give me a follow and check back every Friday for new videos.